Yes. So how do we do that? Go to the notes.
Full face and notes, and then you have to minimize. What is shown on the screen will come.
Yeah.
And then live, right?
Yes, we are live. So I'll say notes and then I minimize. You're right? Say notes.
Yeah. So minimize.
Is that right? Okay. Fine. So welcome back to this Bhakti Shastra course. Today we'll be discussing the summaries of all the 18 mantras along with invocation. So we are not going to discuss any new points. It's just a presentation with all the diagrams, and we'll go through the diagrams to give an overview of what all we have discussed in last 1 month in Īśopaniṣad. Okay, so first the divisions. Invocation spoke about how the Supreme Absolute Truth is perfect and complete. And then there were purports for that. We will see the diagram for that as well. Mantra 1 spoke about the Īśāvāsya principle, that the Supreme Lord, the Absolute Truth, is all pervading. He is the controller, Supreme Controller, and He is the owner of all and gives us our own quota, and we should not encroach upon others' quota, and we should know to whom everything belongs to. Mantra 2 and 3 is the result of following the Īśāvāsya principle and of not following the Īśāvāsya principle. Kurvaneveha karmani. You have to do your work with this Īśāvāsya principle, then you can live for 100 years also, not be a problem. But those who do not follow it, then they fall down. Asuranamate loka. Okay, that is one. Fourth and fifth spoke about the inconceivable Lord, that there are contradictions. There are contradictions in the qualities of the Lord. So therefore, He is inconceivable to our mundane perception. So what are those contradictions? He can walk faster, but then He does not walk. He can take over anybody walking, but then actually He does not walk at all. He can see, His different senses can work in different ways, and all those details we discussed. 6 and 7 spoke about the Mahabhagavata's vision, according to previous shloka, how a Mahabhagavata perceives the inconceivable Lord, because he has purified senses. He is a devotee of the Lord has revealed Himself to him. So although the Lord is inconceivable, still a Mahabhagavata, even within this material world, can experience or has a vision of the inconceivable Lord. Mantra 8 spoke about the Lord's transcendental form, and we spoke about 10 qualities of the Lord. Okay, so we will see in the summary, we will see what all those 10 qualities were and how Srila Prabhupada gave different points for each of those 10 qualities. 9, 10, 11 speak about Vidya and Avidya. So Mantra 9 speaks Avidya and Avidya in a different way, 10 in a different way, and 11 in a different way. Similarly, 12, 13 and 14 spoke about Sambhuti and Asambhuti. Asambhuti, Sambhuti, Sambhavat, Asambhavat, and then again Sambhuti and Asambhuti. That's 12, 13 and 14. 15 is Hiranmayana Patrina, so that the Supreme Lord can remove his Brahmajyoti and the devotee is able to see the Lord's face directly. And we discussed how Brahman, Paramata and Bhagavan features were there, and Bhagavan feature is the Supreme Absolute Truth, is beyond the Brahmajyoti. Mantra 16 is similar, where the devotee is requesting the favor of the Lord. So it's similar in the sense that the focus on Mantra 15 was on removing the Brahmajyoti effulgence, while the 16th mantra speaks about the maintenance or special favor of the Lord to His devotees. Mantra 17 is to bless for liberation at the time of death, that let my life air merge into the totality of air, let my body be burnt to ashes, but you please remember what all sacrifices I have done, what all activities I have done as devotion to you. You please remember that. That is Mantra 17. And Mantra 18 is prayers to the Lord to rectify oneself from within the heart. In due course of my life, I may have committed so many sinful activities and there will be so many reactions. You please burn up those reactions, because you are just like fire. The mantra itself starts with Agni. You are just like fire, so please burn up all those reactions to me and protect me from on all sides. Basically, protect me materially as well as spiritually. That is Mantra 18. Okay. So one thing I just want to clarify is that although we will be discussing these diagrams, it will give a very good indication. But then this is not sufficient enough for your test, or no, don't depend only on these diagrams to, okay, 1.5 hours class and then you can write your exam. Not like that. because the first few mantras I was seeing yesterday, I did not get into each and every point that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport. So it's a very overview kind of thing, that summary. But as we progressed towards the other mantras, then I tried to include all the points of the purport. But here and there, some points are missing. Okay, so this summary is just a summary. It's not complete. So it's important that you also read the book. Okay, and this is only for your, if you have read the book till now, this will be a very good understanding that you will get. Otherwise, just don't depend on this summary itself. It's good to read the book. This is the first invocation. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. The personality of God is perfect and complete, and because it's completely perfect, all emanations from Him, such as the phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. Okay. So this is about complete and perfect. The Lord being Purnam. Purnam is defined as complete and perfect here. Okay, one more thing I'll tell is I'll be moving a bit faster because we have almost 100 slides to cover. Okay, so we have to do it faster so that we can finish it by 9 o'clock. The themes in this purport are these. Complete realization of the absolute truth is Sachidananda Vigraha, not only Brahman or Paramatma, Bhagavan also. The phenomenal world is also complete. The living entities are also complete, especially in the human form of life, where they can achieve the highest perfection. And there's a complete arrangement for maintenance, and there's an incomplete arrangement for sense gratification within this material world. Okay. So absolute truth is Sachidananda. When such feature is realized, it's Brahman. Sat plus Chit is Paramatma. Sat, Chit and Ananda is the personality of Godhead. The phenomenal world also comes from the absolute truth, and there's a complete facility to the living entities for developing their developing their consciousness to attain full consciousness. This phenomenal world is made up of 24 elements, and there's complete arrangement for maintenance, complete arrangement for subsistence. When it is not understood, then one just engages in a life of sense enjoyment, and although one tries to engage in sense enjoyment, he cannot enjoy, and there's only illusory representation of completeness for sense enjoyment. But actually there is no sense enjoyment in this material world. So when the living entities do not understand there's a complete facility to perfect their life, there's a lack of knowledge, then they feel incompleteness. And if the absolute truth is understood as formless, then the absolute truth cannot be complete. So in human form, the complete manifestation of consciousness is possible. If it is utilized, then one engages in service of the absolute truth, and the parts and parcels of the absolute truth attain completeness. If it is not realized, then one has to undergo repeated birth and death in the evolutionary cycle, and all services in the mundane sense, philanthropic, altruistic activities, everything remains incomplete. So there is no completeness. So the gist is only when one understands the nature of the absolute truth and understands that the human form, there is a chance of completely manifesting his full consciousness, and he understands that the universe, the phenomenal world, is perfect and complete, then he can experience completeness. If he does not understand this, there will always be incompleteness in his life. There is no perfection that can be attained. Okay, so this is invocation. Mantra 1 was Īśopaniṣad Vidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tektena Bhunjita Magrita Kasya Svidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So everything is controlled by the Lord, that's one point, and one should accept only those things which are necessary for himself, which are set aside by the Supreme Lord, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. It belongs to the Supreme Lord. Okay. So these are the points. Superiority and authority of Vedic knowledge, Apaurusheya Shabda. Although this was discussed in introduction also. During the class, we discussed that Srila Prabhupada wrote this commentaries on Īśopaniṣad in 1960, when he has not given the lecture in Conway Hall about the Vedas. When Īśopaniṣad book was compiled, then the lecture was included along with the summary, or sorry, not the summary, but the commentary Prabhupada, which he wrote in 1960 before coming to US. So that's why there's a discussion of the Apaurusheya Shabda about the Vedic literatures in this mantra also. The subject matter of Īśopaniṣad is the Lord is the controller and proprietor of everything. The principle is that living beings should accept one's allocated quota. And there was a case study of communism versus capitalism. It's a classic example of illegitimate claim over resources of nature. And we discussed a little bit about this. Human life being a life of responsibility. So Vedic literature is thus meant for humanity, not for animals. And anyone who transgresses the laws of nature, he has to suffer for that. If he kills animal, he has to suffer. But then even vegetarianism also is not complete because vegetables also have life. Recognize the Lord, offer everything for the Lord's service, and partake of His remnants. That's the perfect understanding of the Īśopaniṣad principle. And the conclusion is the root cause of the sin is stated and solution is given. Okay, so it starts with who is the proprietor? Okay, Isha Vasam Vidam Saram. The Supreme Lord is the proprietor. Isha Vasam Vidam Saram, he is the proprietor. And the living entity is not the proprietor. The Vedas establish the Supreme Lord as Īśavasya principle, as the Supreme Lord, as the one who is controlling everything. And the Vedas are not, they are not imperfect, or it cannot be understood by those who are imperfect. Or rather, the other way is that Vedas are not imperfect because of the 4 defects. The Vedas are complete, perfect because they originate from the Supreme Lord. They do not have the inabilities of those 4 defects. And it is taught to Lord Brahma by Supreme Lord himself. The Supreme Lord controls the para and apara prakriti, and that he is the ultimate controller, sustainer, dictator, possessor of all potencies. He is the knower of everything and he is the benefactor or well-wisher of everyone. The living entity, on the other hand, he just has to accept his quota, just like cow's milk belongs to human beings. He is always considered to whom everything belongs to. We cannot create building materials, but we can bring those building materials and can do big constructions. Living entity should accept the Vedic wisdom of Īśopaniṣad and should not quarrel over proprietorship like capitalism or communism case study. Otherwise, they are liable to be punished. It's the prerogative of the living entity to recognize the Supreme Lord. He should be intelligent enough to know the laws of nature. He should become a devotee of the Lord and offer everything for the Lord's service and partake only of His remnants. He should not transgress the laws of nature, so he should not kill animals, and it is not enough to be a vegetarian. So these were the points which were discussed in the purport with specific reference to Īśavasya principle. So how Lord is the supreme controller, he can be known from the Vedas, and these are the qualities of the Lord. He controls both apara and paraprakriti. And the living entity, how he has to act or what he should do with reference to this Īśavasya principle. Okay. So some summary or some amount of hint or some points have been given here. But the next mantra 2 will specifically speak about the Īśavasya principle and why one should follow it. So kurvan evahe karmani jijivishe chatam samaha evam tvai nanyathe tosti na karma lipyate nare. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. But that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. So there is no alternative. One has to follow Īśavasya principle or else he will be implicated in this life. So themes, how karma bandhana causes repeated birth and death, the 3 types of activities, karma, akarma and vikarma. Karma and vikarma binds the living entity because it is done with a desire to enjoy the results, whereas naishkarma and akarma liberates the living entity because there is no material desire involved. Everything is done as an act of sacrifice. Śrīla Prabhupada speaks about selfish and extended sense gratification here, and that one's energy should be exerted in the spirit of Īśavasya. So because it's speaking about kurvan evahe karmani, so therefore Śrīla Prabhupada speaks about karma, akarma, vikarma and gives distinctions between them. Okay. So karma bandhana. Not following prescribed duties leads to karma bandhana. Transgressing laws of nature leads to karma bandhana. One thinks about his own sense enjoyment leads to karma bandhana. And extended isms like altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism, which are all conducted on the bodily platform, also leads to karma bandhana. Karma bandhana can come from vikarma as well as karma. So karma is good work where one performs on prescribed duties, but still he is attached to his results. So that also leads to karma bandhana. Vikarma is bad work where one misuses one's freedom and he attains lower life forms because of the reactions, because of karma bandhana. Īśavasya principle means God-centered activities. One who follows it or one who does not follow it, it leads to karma bandhana. And one who does not follow it, his long life has no value. It just leads him to different types of births and deaths, 8,400,000 types of birth and death. He misses the spiritual opportunity which is provided by the human form of life, and he should be considered as the most unfortunate. But if the process is followed, Īśavasya principle is followed, it regulates the working energy of human being. The living entity attains positive knowledge. He becomes free from karma and vikarma. There is no karma bandhana. And he conducts activities on the Naishkarmya or karma platform, so which saves him from the greatest danger. All the isms can be accommodated. It makes life valuable. Human life is guaranteed, even if one is not successful in perfecting his practice of Naishkarmya or Akarma. Okay, so this is in just the summary of mantra 2. So Īśavasya principle, two specific things, karma bandhana and the different aspects of that. If followed, what happens? The Īśavasya principle, if not followed, it leads to karma bandhana, and then these are the aspects. If it is followed, then it regulates the life, the working energy of human being, and one attains positive knowledge. And Naishkarmya platform also provides different benefits to the living entity. It saves from greatest danger. All isms can be accommodated. It makes life valuable, whereas if not followed, life has no value, and there's a guaranteed human life, even if one is unsuccessful in executing his activities. Then mantra 3, it is the result or the consequence of not following the Īśavasya principle. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavrataha tamste pretyabhigachanti ye ke chatma hanojana. So we discussed about this atmahana, or those who are killers of the soul. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So who is the killer of the soul? Who does not realize the Īśavasya principle. So Suras and Asuras with respect to Īśavasya principle means those who recognize the Īśavasya principle are Suras, and those who do not, they are Asuras. That's why Asurya nama te loka. Human life is a special opportunity for self-realization. Otherwise, one becomes Atmaha, or killer of the soul. What is the position of an unsuccessful yogi? And one who is devoid of this knowledge and endeavor for self-realization, he enters the darkest regions. Okay. So there are two types of human beings specifically discussed in this purport. One is the Suras and the Asuras, who are also called as Atmaha or Atma Sambhavita. Okay. Suras are those who are in human form. Okay. They have all facilities for comfortable life. They understand that they have all facilities for comfortable life. They do not work hard like animals. They discharge duty of higher nature. And an unsuccessful yogi attains the Shuchi or Shrimat human forms, or they take birth in the families of Brahmana or in the families of rich mercantile people. So these Suras are cognizant of their responsibilities, means they know what they are supposed to do in this human form of life, and they aim at lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayaha. We discussed that as well. Then Asuras or Atmaha or Atma Sambhavita are those who are polished animal. Although they are in the human form, they're just like animals. They're materialistic, they're attached. They make a show of religion for material prosperity. They're threatened, although they're threatened by unemployment, but still they think they're happy in this life. And there's an increased problem of hungry stomach. Prabhupada makes this point. They're devoid of knowledge of Īśavasya principle. They're neglectful of their responsibilities. They do not utilize life for self-realization, and therefore they enter the darkest region to suffer. And they work very hard in ignorance because they are devoid of the Īśavasya principle. So this is the Asuras. Srila Prabhupada spends quite some time in explaining who these Asuras are and why they are called as Atmaha and Atma Sambhavita. Although the soul cannot be killed, but one who does not realize the constitutional position of the soul is as good as killing the soul, because the soul is not in its natural environment. Soul is in a foreign environment where he undergoes all these different reactions. Self-realization. So this is one quote from Srimad Bhagavatam, where it was mentioned this material world is just like an ocean. This human body is like a solid boat which can take us across the ocean. The facilities of this human form of life are like favorable breezes. In the Shastra, the Acharyas and the spiritual master are expert boatmen who can navigate us through this ocean of material world. So one should engage in the activities of self-realization the Suras or devotees of the Lord engage in the perfect or they engage in these activities of self-realization because they know the value of any form of life. Whereas this Asuras, Atmahas and Atmabhavitas, they do not. And therefore, these are the characteristics of them. And in this also we discussed some few verses from the 16th chapter. This is showing who are all the Asuras and how Krishna describes about them. Mantra 4 and 5 is the inconceivability of the Lord or the apparent contradictions which are discussed in these mantras. Srila Prabhupada addresses those contradictions and says that the Lord is inconceivable to our mundane senses. Anija dekam manaso javiyo nainat deva apnavan purvamarshad tad dhavato nyan atyedi tishtat tasmin abo matarishva dudhati. All the fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him, although in one place. He controls those who supply the air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. And while discussing this, we discussed that till this point in Īśopaniṣad or in the context of the broad Vedic literature, Īśopaniṣad comes after the first 39 chapters of Vajasneyi Samhita, which is speaking about the Brahmana portion or sacrifices to the different demigods. But after the demigods have been glorified and it has been said that sacrifice should be done to the demigods, Īśopaniṣad gives the proper understanding that demigods are not the goal of whatever has been mentioned in the Vedic literatures, but because the absolute truth or the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be approached even by these powerful demigods to whom you have been offering all your sacrifices and all your activities. So therefore, this is the proper understanding by which you should know that all the Vedic activities are actually meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Absolute truth is very far yet very near. It can't be understood through speculation. Absolute truth and its energies are then described, defeating various misconceptions about the absolute truth, impersonal misconceptions. Only devotees can know the absolute truth completely, position of the marginal energy with respect to the absolute truth and how he should act. Perfect knowledge is knowing the Lord and his potencies. And this particular theme we have all discussed in the later mantras of Īśopaniṣad also, where the different features of the absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are understood based on how much of the Lord's potencies have been realized. In the impersonal Brahmajyoti, the Lord's potencies are not realized at all. In the Paramatma manifestation, some potencies of the Lord are realized with respect to material nature, whereas spiritual nature, there is no potencies which are realized. And in Bhagavan feature of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord is realized. The full potency of the Lord is realized. So absolute truth is ultimately a person, okay, and perfect knowledge means knowing his potencies, knowing the Lord in all his features, and knowing how all his potencies work. So this is perfect knowledge of the absolute truth. There are three energies: internal energy, external energy, and marginal energy. Internal energy is manifested in the spiritual sky. External energy, the material world. And marginal energy has the difference between the absolute truth and the living entity is mentioned here. So marginal energy, he cannot appreciate the Lord's potency because it's limited. And we discussed how even in the liberated stage, the Lord's potency cannot be completely understood by the living entity. He can learn of transcendence only from the Lord because he's limited. He cannot know the Lord by his own endeavor, by his own speculation. He's never equal to the whole, never equal to the absolute truth. Is endowed with some particular energy to carry out his activities with respect to the Lord. The dominating demigods are also the living entities. They execute the will of the Lord. They have all the symptoms of the Lord. So quality-wise, they are same, but quantitatively, they are completely different. And the living entity must properly utilize his initiative of being of the same nature as the Lord, but then he should know that he has to serve the Lord and not try to become the master. The absolute truth cannot be known by mental speculation. It can be known only by his devotees. Bhaktya Mamapi Janati. He is far away after traveling with mind and wind. The speed of mind is so swift, but still we cannot reach the absolute truth. We discussed this. He engages in pastimes in his own abode. Therefore, he is a person. Diffuses energies like heat and light. So just like fire diffuses heat and light as energy, similarly the absolute truth also has different energies which can be related to heat and light. And we discussed this quote from Vishnu Purana, and in the next 4 mantras also we discussed the same mantra, that in Vishnu Purana it's mentioned just like fire emanates heat and light, and they are part of fire itself. The heat and light is non-different from the fire, but at the same time it's different. Similarly, the Lord's energies are non-different, but at the same time they are different also. The absolute truth is not subject to limited capacity, and the Suras and Rishis cannot know him. Okay. Name Vidu Suragana, we discussed that verse. Mantra 5. Tadejati tannaijetvi taddure tadva antike tadantarasya sarvasya taddu sarvasyasya bahyatah. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. So absolute truth must be inconceivable. Thus, there is no contradiction. Srila Prabhupada makes that point, because we should not think because there is a contradiction, therefore the absolute truth is, no, it's just imaginary. It just has been explained just like that frivolously. No. The absolute truth must be inconceivable because we are limited. If the absolute truth can be constrained within our own understanding, then he will not remain as absolute truth, because our understanding becomes superior to the contradictions or the inconceivability of the Lord. So we can never understand the Lord completely. Absolute truth is personal and impersonal. Absolute truth is far, yet descends in speed swifter than the mind. The Lord's form is not mortal. He is nirguna. He does not attain a human form. He does not have a human form. Or he has a form just like a human being. Okay, but not like a mortal form of a human being. It's inconceivable, but still appears as Archa Vigraha. He appears in so-called material form. It looks like material form, but then it's the Supreme Lord himself, this Vishnu Tattva. He sends only to favor his devotees. He is outside in his Virat form and is within everything as Antaryami. Okay. So the absolute truth is inconceivable. So he can convert his potencies according to his will. He can convert matter into spirit. He can convert spirit into matter. He reveals himself based on the devotee's surrender. He can appear anywhere, at any place. Although he is very far, he can appear as, at any place, at any time. And the example was discussed about Lord Nrsimhadev, who appeared by the wish of his devotee. And he comes to protect believers and vanquish the non-believers. Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya cha dushkritam. We discussed that. The absolute truth is both nirguna and saguna. And saguna should be understood that the Lord has transcendental qualities. He does not have material qualities. And nirguna means use energy for any purpose without being influenced. So he is not influenced even if he comes to this material world and performs his pastimes, although it might seem that he has similar human form and is engaging with material items, but still he is never affected by anything material. He is not affected by the three modes. Therefore, he is called as nirguna. Perfect conception of the absolute truth is the Supreme is personal as well as impersonal. He is both. Okay, and he enters everything by his plenary portion. He is outside in his Virat form and is within everything as Antaryami. He awards our karma phala. He awards the reactions. So he is not a mortal being of material nature. There is oneness in his diverse energies also, because these energies are his energies. So there is oneness. And contradictions are there, that he is far away yet he is near. But he still has personal abode in the spiritual sky, and he can descend before us swifter than mind or wind. All this very far in his own spiritual personal abode, but still he can descend faster than the speed of mind. He walks, but he doesn't walk. He is within everything and outside as well. So those who have limited knowledge cannot understand and see the Lord. They only see the contradictions in the absolute truth, which leads them to only misconceptions about the understanding of the absolute truth. What are the misconceptions? They think the Supreme is impersonal, and they are foolish to think that his body is made up of material energy. So therefore they deride him whenever he descends, and they think that he cannot incarnate himself. And whenever he incarnates, he comes in a material form. So inconceivability is the Lord accepts service in his deity form. This is designed for, or that he comes for helping the neophyte devotee progress in spiritual path. One can see him by the material vision itself. Although one might not have developed transcendental vision, still one can see him. He is eternally existent with all paraphernalia. So the deity is not limited in any way. The deity is complete. He agrees to appear in an approachable way. Everybody can approach him. He is not fashioned according to whims of the worshipper. The deity form is manifested or established based upon the descriptions given in the Vedic literatures, in the Shastra. It's not fashioned according to whims of the worshipper. And we also discussed in another mantra that if it is done so, then it's an idol worship. We discussed about Panchapasana at one place. So if it's fashioned according to the whims of the worshipper, then it becomes idol worship. Okay. So several points are here. But then these are the things that Srila Prabhupada discusses about the absolute truth. Mantra 6 and 7 is the vision of the Mahabhagavata. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tatona vijugupsate. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So this is the Mahabhagavata's vision, his external vision, how he sees everything around him, how he perceives everything around him. He sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. He sees everything, all the living entities and parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And he also knows that the Supreme Lord is within everything. Therefore, he does not hate anybody, or he does not hate any material object also, or any living entity. He is always equal. So, 3 types of devotees are discussed: Kanishthadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, Uttamadhikari, and his activities. Imitating Uttamadhikari is not proper, it leads to Sahajiyasm. Anupashyati means learning Vedic truths via commentaries in disciplic succession, and it should be in line with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So just the qualities of Kanishthadhikari and Madhyamadhikari is given. Kanishthadhikaris are materialistic devotees trying to transcend material boundary. They think one type of devotion is better than other. Within the 9 devotional process itself, they think one is better than the other. We discussed that one who does deity worship and one who is engaged in cleaning for the Lord, they are both on the same transcendental level. They quarrel among each other, fight among devotees. If there's a fight among devotees, we know it's Kanishthadhikari thing. Follow the routine formula, means regulations, they are completely regulated, which is good. Cannot ascertain position in devotional service. They cannot ascertain their position, and they cannot ascertain the position of other devotees also. They do not know in which level I belong, whether I am a Kanistha or I am progressing towards Madhyama, and they cannot, seeing the devotee, identify whether it's Uttamadhikari or a Madhyamadhikari or a Kanishthadhikari. They think the Lord is present in temple and nowhere else, and they are engaged, or their concentration is on temple worship according to scriptural regulations. This is the lowest stage of realization. Whereas Madhyamadhikari, they belong, or they have, means 4 categories are mentioned. Those who are atheists, who have no faith in the God and who hate devotees. So Madhyamadhikari, he avoids them, who deride the very name of the Lord. And towards the Supreme Lord, he adores the Lord, he worships the Lord. To the devotees of the Lord, he makes friends with them, with those in devotional service. And those who are innocent, who have no knowledge of God, he tries to awaken love of God in innocent hearts. So he tries to preach to them. Uttamadhikari is one who sees everything in relation to the Lord. He does not discriminate between an atheist and a theist, because he sees everybody as a part and parcel. The living entity is seen as part and parcel of the Lord. He does not see any essential difference between Brahmana and dog, because he sees the living entity. He tries to do good to both. He is not misled by material bodies, and he is attracted by spiritual spark. And this vision cannot be had by politicians. One should learn universal brotherhood from these Uttamadhikaris, not from the politicians, and they are on the liberated platform. Those who are Uttamadhikari imitators, they behave on bodily platform. They have no information of the spiritual world, and they are these false philanthropists who work only for fame and material rewards. And they think that they are seeing everybody as equal, just like Uttamadhikari sees everything and all the living entities and parts and parcel of the Lord as equal. Uttamadhikari imitator has a material vision, so he sees all human beings as equal. But then he discriminates between the animals also, as discussed in other mantra. So we should also remember that. Then Anupashyati means one who comes in disciplic succession. he follows the previous acharyas, and then he hears from a superior source. So therefore, to attain to the level of Uttamadhikari, one should follow, one should anupashyati, one should follow. He should not imitate, but should follow. Imitators are these people, and followers are those who follow, who come in the disciplic succession. They follow the previous acharyas, they do not imitate. Vedic wisdom means Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And unauthorized commentaries are those which contradict Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so we discussed about Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, then Uttamadhikari, Uttamadhikari imitators, and how knowledge should be gained from the Vedas, and how proper knowledge should be gained by the process of Anupashyati. So this is mantra 6. Mantra 7. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmai vabhut vijanatah tatra ko mohaka shoka ekatvam anupashyatah. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So for the Mahabhagavata, there is no illusion or there is no anxiety. The external vision of seeing everything as part and parcel of the Lord is discussed in mantra 6. And here, the same vision, the living entity is seen in quality with one with the Lord. So he becomes a true knower of things, and therefore there is no illusion or anxiety for him. So his personal behavior itself is perfect. His personal consciousness is perfect. Srila Prabhupada speaks about ekatvam, seeing oneness in the Lord and his energies, seeing oneness in the Lord and the living entities. So living entities are not one in all respects. They are one in interest with the Lord, and they are also meant for enjoyment, but on the nirguna platform, not on the material platform. But godless civilization doesn't see oneness, which leads to illusion and lamentation, moha and shoka. So one should cultivate ekatvam anupashyata, means one should cultivate the vision of Mahabhagat. But the godless civilization does not cultivate the vision of Mahabhagat. So the conclusion is that minute Atma or living entity should serve the Supreme Atma, Paramatma, which leads to transcendental realization. So godless civilization means from illusion, it leads to godless civilization. One is completely illusioned by this material nature, it leads to godless civilization. He says there is no God. And that leads to shoka or lamentation. This godless civilization is sponsored by modern politicians, and therefore they are full of anxiety because they don't consider the absolute truth. All their plans are crushed at any moment. They can be crushed at any moment. That's the law of nature. But to overcome the law, one has to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Right? Then, the Supreme Lord is fully energetic, and the living entities are the energies of the Lord. The Supreme Lord maintains the living entities. Qualitatively, they are one. Living entities and Supreme Lord are one, but quantitatively, they are different. Ekatvam between living entity and Supreme Lord does not mean same in all respects. The living entity can at the max possess 80% of the Lord's qualities, but minutely. So qualities can be till 80%, but the quantity of those qualities will be very minute. And the living entity cannot surpass the Supreme Lord. Okay. Ekatvam anupashyatah. Mahabhagavata's vision is that he always sees oneness between the Lord and the living entities, which means that he sees the living entity and the Lord are of the same interest. The Atma has to serve the Supreme Lord. Ekatvam means all living entities belong to the family of the Lord. One should see unity from point of revealed scriptures, and Atma Bhuta or Brahma Bhuta stage is the stage of Ekatvam anupashyatah. One understands that the Supreme Lord is the same as me in quality, then that's the Atma Bhuta stage or Brahma Bhuta stage. And in that stage, one attains happiness. So Supreme Lord, his desire is to derive pleasure from his family, because all living entities belong to the family of the Lord. Right? Okay. And Supreme Lord, being energetic, enjoys on the spiritual platform. So there is no clash on object of enjoyment. One who understands this. He is the center of the sublime and spiritual rasa dance. And the living entity, they are also meant for enjoyment, Anandamaya Abhyasat, with the Supreme Lord. Living entity is meant to join him. That is perfect ekatvam, where there is no shoka or moha. So they should engage in the sublime and spiritual rasa dance with the Supreme Lord, but they are engaged in material tabernacle. That's the reality. So those who are Mahatmas, amongst the living entities, those who are Mahatmas, they are very rarely seen, and one attains the position of Mahatma only after many, many births. Samahatma Sudurlabaha. And seeing enjoyment in the wrong platform. So those who are not Mahatmas, they seek enjoyment on the wrong platform. But actually, they are supposed to seek enjoyment in association with the Lord. That is Anandamaya Abhyasa. Okay. So mantra 8, this speaks about the 10 qualities of the person feature of the Absolute Truth. Saparyagat Chukram Akayam Avrinam Ashnaviram Shuddham Apapaviddham Kavir Manishi Paribu Swayambur Yatha Yato Arthan Vyadadhaj Chashvatibhyas Samabhyah. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So Srila Prabhupada discusses these qualities. He says Akayam is unembodied, Ashnaviram is without wings because his body is not material, it is transcendental. Shukram is omnipotent. He appears as Archa Vigraha. The ignorant cannot understand him. Yatha Tat Yato Arthan. He is the fulfiller of desires based upon the qualification of the living entity. And everything is dependent on him. The conditioned souls don't know what to ask. Although he is a fulfiller of all desires, they ask him for material benefits. Paribhu, Swayambhu, Shuddham and Apapaviddham. Okay. Paribhu is the greatest of all. Right? Paribhu is the greatest of all. Swayambhu is self-sufficient. And Shuddham is antiseptic. Apapaviddham is prophylactic. So Srila Prabhupada explains. So Akayam and Ashnaviram. The Lord's form, Akayam means he is unembodied and Ashnaviram means he has no veins. So he has transcendental and eternal form. His form is not like the forms in the material world, which are material machines with mechanical construction, where the body is composed of blood, veins, nerves, this, that and all. It's a mechanical construction, just like a machine. But the Lord's form is not like that. He has no veins, Ashnaviram. No difference between him, his body and his mind. He is not forced to accept body like us. He is Satchidananda Vigraha and is devoid of a form which we can conceive of. Okay, so these are all the different aspects of Akayam and Ashnaviram. Shukram. So the Supreme Lord in his original form, he expands, and Shukram means his senses can do the work of other senses. He is omnipotent. And because he is omnipotent, he can expand himself as Archa Vigraha also. Okay. The Supreme Lord expands as Archa Vigraha because he is Shukram, he is omnipotent. The Supreme Lord can transform matter to spirit and vice versa. So by his inconceivable potencies, he can do both, transform matter to spirit and spirit to matter. When he descends as Archa Vigraha, he descends on request of the Acharyas and he accepts service by his omnipotent energy. Similar point was also discussed in that previous mantra, mantra 6, right? When mantra 6 or mantra 4, I think mantra 4 or 5 were discussing about the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. There also there is a discussion about Archa Vigraha, and that he comes to accept service from his devotees. Similar points are being discussed here also. So those who have no knowledge about the omnipotence of the Lord, he thinks the form is made up of material elements. The fools think like this, and Kanishtadhikaris also sometimes think that the Archa Vigraha is a form made of material elements. So the omnipotence of the Lord is such that he can walk with his hands, he can accept things with his legs, he can see with his hands and feet, he can eat with his eyes, he can accept all that we offer, although he is very far, and he can run faster than anyone. So these are the features of his omnipotency. The Lord's mercy is Yatha Tathyato Arthan. Whatever is desired by the living entity, he supplies that in proportion to the qualification of the living entity, as desired by the living entity and by his mercy. So these three factors are there for the living entity to accept things from the Lord. So he is supplying goods from time immemorial to the living entities. The living entity's intelligence is divided or splayed. It's multifarious. They do not understand all this. They are captivated and forget the real aim of life, these conditioned living entities, and they try to adjust things with their plans and programs, and therefore they are chewing the chewed. Matigrana Krishna Paratasvatova Amitovi Patyeta Grahavritanam Adanta Gobhir. Because of their uncontrolled senses, Adanta Gobhir Vishatam Tamishram Punah Punah Charvita Charvananam. Because of this insatiable sense gratification, the desired sense gratification, they chew the chewed by trying to adjust things with various plans and programs. So they beg for either sense gratification from the Lord or for real liberation, for going back home, back to God. Therefore, the living entity is not the greatest of all. It is the Supreme Lord, Paribhuhu, who is the greatest of all. Because one has to come to him for either asking for material sense gratification or for going back home, back to God. They are dependent on the Lord. Then, Swayambhu is self-sufficient because he danced with the gopis and there is no reproach. Avranam, his dancing cannot be reproachable. It's glorified by Shukdev Goswami himself. The full manifestation of his various activities, he by his own energies, he manifests his various activities. He killed many powerful demons without any endeavor. He lifted Govardhan hill without any practice. He does not have to undergo weight training. We discussed that. Then his dancing with the gopis is worshipped by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shuddham and Apapavidham means he's pure and uncontaminated. Shuddham means his antiseptic, which means impure things become purified, and he's compared to the sun. Prophylactic means Apapavidham, anyone who comes with his association, then he also becomes purified. So even a Sudurachara is accepted as pure because he is firmly determined in his service to the Lord. Api chet Sudurachara bhajate mam ananya bhak. Without any deviation, he is engaged in devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, by the association with the Lord, he becomes completely purified. And sin cannot touch him. So, Apapavidham means these two. By his power of his association, everybody becomes purified and sin cannot touch him. Therefore, it's called as Apapavidham. Shuddha means impure things become purified by coming in contact with him. It's compared to the sun. Okay, Mantra 9. So, this is Mantra 9 and 10 and 11. We'll be discussing about is Vidya and Avidya. Andham tamah pravishanti ye avidyam upasate tato bhuya vetetamo yao vidyayam rataha. Those who engage in the culture of ancient activity shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So it's a comparative study of Vidya and Avidya. Vidya, when mistaken, is more dangerous than Avidya. Avidya takes to darker region. Vidya takes to darkest region. Aim of real education, Vidya, is self-realization, but people are engaged in materialistic type of education. Vedavada Rathas are those who are engaged in the culture of Vidya, which leads to the darkest region. So what they should be preaching, those who understand the Vedic literatures perfectly, what they should be preaching, but actually what are they preaching? Maya Bhartagyana are those who imagine oneself or another man as worshipable without recognizing the superiority of the Lord. So Vidya or real education aims for self-realization. So spiritual values of the soul must be understood that the senses or mind is greater than the senses, intelligence is greater than the mind, and the soul proper is greater than the intelligence. So education which does not lead to self-realization, it leads to avidya. And vidya, when it's mistaken or misguided, is more dangerous and it leads one to the darkest region of ignorance. Modern or godless civilization is the civilization of mass education, where karmis are 99.9% are engaged only in sense gratification. And they are described in 715 as mudhas or asses, and they are a symbol of stupidity. Mass education, where education advancement is done, material education advancement is happening, but it's more dangerous because it leads to only sense gratification. It's just like a cobra decorated with a valuable jewel, and it's a decoration of dead body. Mass education leads people who become more unhappy. There's a stress on material advancement. They neglect the spiritual aspect. They forget Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything. So this is Vidya with reference to mass education. And one who karmis are those people who worship avidya, and therefore they also go to the darker region. Okay. Then the Vedavada Rathas, they are condemned in this mantra by this term Vidyayam Rataha. They engage in study of the Vedas, but they do not know the purpose of the Vedas. They are diverted from the purpose of Vedas. And the purpose of the Vedas, which is actually to awaken the God consciousness in forgivable living beings, which are presented in various different scriptures for foolish mankind, they are actually supposed to lead to Godhead. This is the actual purpose of the Vedas, but the Vedavadarthas are completely diverted from this purpose. What do they preach? Sorry, let's see this first. The Vedavadarthas are defined as those who are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas. They pose themselves as learned in Vedic literatures, but they do not know the purpose. They disobey the Acharyas. They are not interested in knowing the personality of Godhead, and they are not interested in reviving lost relationship with Him. They search out meaning to suit their own purpose, so they twist the meanings of the Vedas. They are fascinated by fruitive results such as attainment of heaven, karma kandis. They do not know that the Vedic literature can be understood only in disciplic succession. Although they might be following the Vedas, the proper process or the purpose of the Vedas can be understood only in disciplic succession. They consider lust, which causes material bondage, as the ultimate end of the Vedas. Means the ultimate goal of all the Vedic literature is to satisfy one's senses. One should do activities, Vedic activities here, rituals here, sacrifices here, go to the heavenly planets, enjoy himself, and once the reactions are diminished, come back again, do the activities again, and then again go up and enjoy in heavenly planets. So they think that this sense enjoyment is the highest. So what do they preach? They misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedas. So they themselves are completely deluded, but at the same time, they misguide others also by misinterpreting the Vedas. And this is the reason why they go to the darkest regions. So this leads to the dark region of ignorance. They condemn the Puranas. They give their own explanation of the Vedas. They tend to raise an unscrupulous person as a leader. They neglect the authority of the great teachers and acharyas and have their own acharyas who are not in disciplic succession. So these are all the factors which leads these Vedavadarathas to the darkest regions because they misguide others. Okay. Fine. Who are the Maya Paharta Jnanas? They are the self-made gods. They claim themselves as God. They are the atheistic demons, and therefore they are the lowest of men. They agree to worship an ordinary man who is rich, but they never worship the personality of Godhead. They are unable to recognize their own foolishness. How God can be entrapped by Maya? They think like this. Cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves. Okay. So although they recognize their own, they are unable to recognize their own foolishness. It's like they know that they are entrapped by Maya, but then they do not have the common sense to understand that how can God be entrapped by Maya? He should be the greatest. So this is mantra 9, where Vidya and Avidya discussed. Mantra 10, Anya Devahur Vidyaya, Anya Dahur Avidyaya, Iti Shishramadhirana, Yenas Tat Vichachakshire. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Culture of knowledge, Vidya, the 18 items of Vidya are described. Nescience is Avidya, and how to get Vidya, knowledge from a Dhira. So the qualifications of Dhira were mentioned. Real knowledge or Vidya is those 18 items of knowledge mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 13.8 to 12. Real knowledge can be understood only by the Dhira. Okay. And so the living entity, his actual function is in the living spiritual world. Okay. And the living entity is the one who manipulates dead lumps of matter. That is why this world appears to be a living world. Although the material world is dead, but still the world appears to be living because the living entity is able to manipulate the matter. But the actual position of the living entity is that he belongs to the spiritual world. So the Dhira, he knows this by hearing from authorities. He attains Vidya by hearing from authorities, so that is his qualification, and by following regulative principles. So Dhira, one should take shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, to follow the regulative principles and to attain the position of a Dhira. Who is a Dhira? A Dhira is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. is perfectly spiritually realized. He neither hankers or laments for anything, and he knows material body and mind are foreign elements, and therefore he tries to make best use of bad bargain. Those who are falsely proud of being advanced, they don't care about real vidya. And an adhira is one who cannot be an instructive leader because he himself is agitated. The modern politicians are categorized as adhira. They are busy in their own remuneration in dollar and cents, and they cannot lead mass of people to the right path. Material knowledge or culture of nescience, avidya, is when one becomes no better than an ass. The boys don't respect their elders anymore. There is no culture. Universities are the centers of nescience, and they promote the scientists to develop various weapons to wipe out nations. Students are not given education on brahmacharya, no faith in scriptural injunctions, and religious principles are taught for name and fame only. Therefore, it leads to animosity in the field of religion as well. Another type of nescience or avidya is nationalism. Okay, so vidya we discussed how it can be obtained, what actually is vidya. And dhira and adhira, there's a comparison of dhira and adhira. And with avidya, in this particular purport, these two aspects are discussed. One is the universities, which are cultures of nescience, and nationalism. So they don't consider the earth as a lump of matter, so therefore they give it lots of importance. This earth is just like a dust particle in the vastness of space. They don't consider the supreme driver of all planets, so they have no knowledge about that. That he is the one who has made these planets complete and equipped with all necessities. They create their own nations to grasp sense enjoyment effectively, and they're just like small creatures trying to control, but they undergo repeated birth and death in that process. And the span of human life has also decreased to 20 or 30 years, but still they are trying to create their own nations. They render national demarcation impossible because it keeps on changing based on the desires of different leaders. This is a source of anxiety for each other. They develop defense weapons and other things, so the neighbors are always fighting. It's a source of anxiety for each other. More than 50% is spent on defense measures, so therefore the nation's energy is spoiled. Okay, mantra 11. Vidyam cha vidyam chayas tad vedo bhayam saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyayamritam ashnute. Only one who has learned the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side together can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So, immortality, which is amritam, mrityum tirtva, amritam ashnute. We discussed these points. So, desiring immortality in this material realm should always lead to an unsuccessful result. So, how should one attain it? What is knowledge? What is nescience? So, there should be a balanced program of vidya and avidya, and this balanced program is following the culture of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. The actual purpose of vidya is devotional service. So, the path of avidya is when the activities of material senses are performed. The activity of material senses itself is the path of avidya. It's a perverted reflection to the actual activities of the living entities. And the path of repeated birth and death. So, unrestricted sense enjoyment leads to the path of repeated birth and death. The path of avidya is the path of repeated birth and death. The foolish don't mind the process because they are fools, and therefore they undergo the same miseries of repeated birth and death. The path of avidya will increase the feverish material condition. But one should understand that one should not cultivate the path of vidya. In pure spiritual form, a real sense enjoyment is possible, but not in this material realm. The cruel laws of nature are such that one cannot avoid death at any moment. There is no immunity from old age, disease, and death. Nuclear bomb has been produced to accelerate the process of death. Advancement of knowledge cannot solve the problems. And then we discussed the example of Hiranyakashipu, who was a perfect materialist. But still he was killed by personality of Godhead, Shimhadev. Although he tried to somehow get boons from Lord Brahma to make himself immortal, but then he could not. So we are just like tiny Hiranyakashipus whose plans are thwarted at every moment. So our struggle is just like a one-sided attempt to win, but it cannot help. And at any moment, the world may go to hell. That's the cruel laws of nature. So therefore, there is a culture of avidya. So we discussed about this path of avidya and culture of avidya. Although Srila Prabhupada in the purport speaks about culture of avidya, and then he says that avidya is very dangerous, but at the same time he also uses this term culture of avidya, that one can use avidya to make the best use of bad bargain. So while discussing in the class, I did mention that for the sake of clear understanding, path of avidya is that which leads one to darkness, but the culture of avidya is where avidya is utilized for one to elevate himself to Vrityum Tirtva or Amritam Ashnute, like this. So culture of avidya is when one makes the best use of bad bargain. Maintenance of body and mind is required. So therefore, he has a balanced program of material and spiritual knowledge. The tendency of sense gratification, which is avidya, is regulated in the Vedas, and this is done through the process of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Misguided men do not understand the real purpose of dharma. Actually, dharma is meant for self-realization. They are interested only in artha and kama. They do not understand dharma and moksha. Dharma is actually supposed to lead one to moksha. The perfect understanding of moksha being going back home, back to God, to render personal service to the Lord. But because people get artha and kama without following dharma, therefore they do not understand the real purpose of dharma. They think dharma is meant only for artha and kama. And if I can get artha and kama without dharma, I will give a dharma also. This is the present situation. So Srila Prabhupada discussed about that. And culture of knowledge or vidya means that one should learn from the scriptures, from Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, so that he can attain permanent life, go back home, back to Godhead. And by this culture of knowledge, one can be happy in this life as well as in the next life. And one can be happy only by returning to spiritual home. That's how he can remain happy. The Lord sends bona fide servants to propagate this culture of vidya, and that's because the Lord Krishna is more sorry than us for our suffering. One who does not utilize his human form of life, then he is called as a Naradhama. And the best opportunity in human form is when one can cultivate knowledge, the culture of knowledge. And one should know that the miseries within this matter actually indirectly reminds us of our incompatibility with matter. So vidya should lead to that. It should lead to detachment from matter, because the miseries indirectly remind incompatibility with matter. A perfect solution is transcendental devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is perfectly present in Srimad Bhagavatam. One can attain knowledge and detachment by the 18 principles of knowledge, which was mentioned in text 10. And this is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the transcendental process of devotional service, and it is summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 14. Tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan shashvatapati, like this. So mantra 12, 13 and 14 will speak about Sambhuti, Asambhuti. So Antham tamah pravishanti ye asambhuti upasate tato bhuya ivete tamo yau sambhutyam rataha. This is very similar to mantra 9. This Antham tamah pravishanti ye avidyayam upasate tato bhuya ivete tamo yau vidyayam rataha. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. So Sambhuti here is impersonal absolute, and Asambhuti is worship of the demigods. Sambhuti and Asambhuti is the comparison. Demigod worship is Asambhuti. One who worships Asambhuti are the pseudo-religionists, the impersonalists and manufacturers of incarnation. Srila Prabhupada discusses about these three specifically here, and the perfect way of worshipping Sambhuti. So Srila Prabhupada starts his purport with the negative conception of the absolute truth, which is indulged into by philosophers, great rishis or mystics. They can at most reach impersonal effulgence, the Brahman, which is not complete, formless and without qualities. They do not know about Paramatma and Bhagavan. So therefore their Sambhuti is dangerous. Asambhuti means one who does not have independent existence, which are the demigods and the great sages. And their powers are limited. And because they cannot know the origin and opulences of the Lord, they think that Krishna is just a powerful demigod, or Lord Vishnu is just a powerful demigod. That's all. He is not the absolute truth. Sambhuti means the absolute personality of Godhead. Only devotees can understand. Bhaktiyamaha Vijanati again. And for demigods and great sages, it's very difficult to know Krishna's appearance in human form. When he comes in his human form, they cannot understand. Name Vidu Suragana, again, similar point which was already discussed before. Srila Prabhupada speaks about demigod worship. Demigod worship is indulged in by those, or if you worship demigods, it's only a temporary life. It does not give permanent relief. And because the entire material universe is impermanent, so we can only derive material benefits from demigods. No spiritual benefits can be derived by worshipping them. One can go to the planet of the demigods up to Brahmaloka, and human beings are naturally inclined to travel to higher planets. All planets but are temporary residences and therefore are places of misery. One who worships the demigods remain in the darkest region of ignorance because the universe is covered by gigantic material elements. And discussed how the diameter of the universe and then 10 times more each of the coverings. We discussed that. The problems of life cannot be solved by demigod worship, and scriptures recommend, but they say there is no necessity for indulging in demigod worship. Krishna, he never leaves the highest planet Krishna Loka, and yet he is present in material and spiritual manifestation. Srila Prabhupada makes that point. Okay. Pseudo worshippers and religionists, they are religionists for name and fame only. They want to maintain their status quo. They neither have knowledge nor detachment. They are led to the darkest region by atheists and impersonalists. So they mislead their followers and become acharyas, but they do not follow the principles of acharyas. See, this was already discussed while discussing the vidya and avidya concept. So same is coming here in Asambhuti also. So these pseudo worshippers or religionists, they engage in philanthropic activities which is disguised as religious. Manav Seva, Madhav Seva, we discussed. They have no respect for authoritative acharyas. They do a false display of religious sentiments and show of devotional service, but engage in immoral activities. So these pseudo worshippers or religionists are also the Prakrita Sahajiyas, who although display religious sentiments, but then they engage in immoral activities. They are the most dangerous elements in human society, and they can escape the punishments from law of state, but they cannot escape the laws of the Supreme. The demons enter the darkest regions, and they're heading to most obnoxious place after their spiritual master business. Right? This is exactly the word that Srila Prabhupada uses, after the spiritual master business. Then, the atheists are those who deny the existence of God, and the impersonalists, they support those atheists by stressing the impersonal aspect. This impersonal stress on impersonal aspect is another form of ignorance. Their knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance because they misguide others. They pose themselves as incarnations of God, and they do not worship demigods according to scriptures. These are the impersonalists. So therefore, there is no question of them making any progress. So only way to approach the Supreme Lord is devotional service. Okay. And salvation depends on knowledge and detachment, which is gained from devotional service. And devotional service leads one to complete freedom from the bondage of birth and death. Mantra 13. Anya devahu sambhavat, anya dahur asambhavat, iti shushramadhiranam, yenas tad vichachakshire. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. So Sambhavat and Asambhavat take a different meaning in this mantra. Hearing from undisturbed authorities, again, Srila Prabhupada speaks about Dhiranam, as he spoke in mantra 10. Different result is achieved by different worship. Doing anything or worshipping anything, not authorized. Do what Krishna says in the various Shastra. Worship Krishna because he is the Supreme Lord. One should hear from an Acharya with faith and love. Krishna is Sambhuta, the object of worship, and not humanity. Humanity worship is Asambhuta. And how one should worship the Lord. So this is one of the bigger purports that we discussed. So foolish, self-made spiritual master or spiritual leader, they worship the fabricated Krishna, whereas they should worship real Krishna. We spoke about real Krishna and fabricated Krishna. So these are the pretenders or pseudo-incarnations. Who are these people? Okay. So they care nothing of the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Okay. They do not take up the points discussed in Bhagavad Gita. They explain Bhagavad Gita in their own way. They think that they can reach the same goal by worshipping anyone. They attract foolish creatures who become puffed up. They cannot know Krishna, and they compromise, thinking humanity is as good as worshipping the Supreme Lord, humanity as the object of worship. They pour water on the leaves, and they think bodily service is more important. Medical aid, social help, and education for humanity. So they engage in philanthropic activities, but they kill animals. They are hypocrite also. Mental speculation, think the Lord's activities are imaginary, Therefore, they refrain from hearing of them, they invent some word jugglery and divert attention of innocent masses. They have the number of these pseudo or these foolish self-made spiritual masters has increased considerably, and therefore it has become a problem for pure devotees to save the masses from them. They advertise themselves as the objects of glorification. And so this problem for pure devotees to save the masses from unholy propaganda of pretenders and pseudo incarnations, because their number has increased considerably. Okay. Then Krishna is the cause of all causes. So perfect understanding of Sambhuta is to understand Krishna as the cause of all causes. Upanishads indirectly draw our attention to Krishna by not mentioning his name, but Bhagavad Gita directly points to Krishna. And we discussed how many times Srila Krishna uses the word Mam and Aham throughout Bhagavad Gita. The source, Krishna is the source of birth, sustenance and reservoir after annihilation. He is Abhigya, he is fully cognizant. And these are some of the references which prove that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So Narayana Upanishad, Mantra 1, Mantra 4. We have to move a bit faster because we're running out of time. So these things are there in the purport, so you can actually discuss that or read it. In Brahma Samhita also it's mentioned, Moksha Dharma, Maha Upanishad, Mahabharat, Varaha Purana, Gopal Tapani Upanishad. And one should know, so the conclusion is that one should know this from the evidence by great sages and the Vedas, and therefore they worship only Krishna. So Krishna purifies devotees from within their hearts, removes passion and ignorance. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2. We discussed these shlokas multiple times. The non-devotees are in passion and ignorance, cannot know the Supreme Lord, and in passion and ignorance there is no chance for self-realization. And by such kind of purification, one qualifies himself as a Brahmana. So you see, this is similar to Mantra 18, the points that Srila Prabhupada made in Mantra 18 about the purification and the qualification, Brahminical qualification that one attains. This is similar. Then we have notes to cover. So one who worships Krishna through the path of devotional service attains his eternal abode. And Arjuna became Buddha by worshipping or hearing from real Krishna, not from fabricated Krishna. One qualifies as a Brahmana by engaging in devotional service. He becomes happy and enthusiastic to render service. The science of God is unveiled to him. His doubtful mind becomes crystal clear. And in liberated stage, he can see the Lord in every step of his life. So this is the perfection of Sambhava or Sambhuti. So one should worship the Supreme Lord with full love and energy, and that is done by hearing and chanting about his great activities. So real service is the philosophy of surrender. One who worships with his planning commission, worships the planning commission political adjustment, he remains in wretched planets, this earthly planet. One who worships demigods, go to the planets of the demigods. Okay. Then one who has faith and love in Krishna, then he is convinced that Krishna is all in all, which is established by hearing. And one who does not have faith and love, then he is considered as Mudha. He derides the personality of Godhead and he is disturbed by whirlpool of material energy. So one should have faith and love in Acharya. That's the point, this is the connection. One should have faith and love in Acharya, then his conviction that Krishna is all in all is established. But one who does not have faith in Acharya, then he has these three. So Vedic instructions are received from disciplic succession from the Acharya. Only devotee or a friend can understand the Gita or the Vedic instructions. And due to his unflinching faith in the Lord or in understanding Bhagavad Gita, one is cleansed of all sinful reactions. Such an Acharya, Dhira, is not disturbed by changes in the material world. And real key to hearing, to transcendental knowledge, is hearing from such an Acharya. And he never presents anything which is not there in the Vedic literature. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yassat vedo vayam saha vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhutyamritam ashrute. One should know perfectly the personality of God Shri Krishna and his transcendental name, form, qualities and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with his temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So, Sambhuti and Asambhuti is defined in a different way in this mantra, so that we should understand. Human civilization's failure to achieve deathless abode of the Lord. Again, this same point which was discussed in mantra 11 also. That human civilization has fail to achieve deathlessness. Spiritual planets are achieved only by devotional service, material disease and the cure, and one should know both Sambhuti and Vinash. So, three energies of the Lord, the living entities, the material energy and superior energy. Material energy is Ekapada Vibhuti, 1/4, whereas superior energy is Tripada Vibhuti. Material energy or material creation is made possible from material energy, and the living entities, they are normally engaged in fruitive activities. Ignorance of Vedic literature makes this place, so those who are ignorant of Vedic literature, they try to make this place deathless. Those who are ignorant. In material creation, there is the 6 transformation. Trying to lord over the material nature leads to 6 transformation. And material advancement and science has failed to stop the 6 transformations. Demigod, man, animal or plants, they cannot stop this 6 transformation. And Lord Brahma and minute germ are also liable to death, and entire material universe therefore called as Martya Loka. It's not called as Janma Loka. Discuss that. There are 3 planetary systems, and upper planets, this 24 hours is equal to 1 year of human beings. The lower planets are vanquished at the end of day of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma's lifespan is this big. There are 2 avyakta stage within this material universe itself, when there's a destruction at the end of Lord Brahma's day and destruction of the whole universe itself. But beyond these 2 avyakta stage, there's one more avyakta stage, which is the spiritual unmanifested stage, created from superior energy of the Lord, which is eternal, transcendental, supreme, and it's a spiritual planet. Shri Krishna and his expansions, they dominate each of these planets. And he comes to this material world to establish religion, and the last instruction that he gives in Bhagavad Gita is to surrender unto him. So by the process of karmis, one can reach Swargaloka. By Jnanis and Yogis, he can reach to Maharloka, Tapaloka or Brahmaloka. But by unalloyed devotional service, one can reach the Vaikuntha planets. And these Jnanis and Yogis, if they are more qualified for devotional service, they can also reach the Vaikuntha planets. Right? Okay. Then, the foolish people misinterpret, or they are advised as great scholars. They do not know how to specify insurmountable time. They are interested in temporary work, hospitals, public, semi-governmental institutions like this. They are advertised as great scholars, but overlook Bhagavad Gita, by which material nature can be pacified. Nature can be pacified by awakening Krishna consciousness, but they are misguided by temporary service, misleading and degrading. So this is about pacification of the material nature. Sambhuti and Vinash, one should know perfectly together. Vinasha alone is not sufficient. There is a devastation every moment. One can be saved by complete knowledge of eternal life. No question of liking or disliking it. One must take the devotional service. There can be no compromise because it's a matter of necessity. So one should know Sambhuti and Vinasha together. Mantra 15 is an important mantra. Hiranmayana Patrina Satyasapahita Mukham Tattvam Pushanna Pavano Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. These from 15 to 18 are the prayers by the devotee to the Lord. First prayer is, O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. So, we spoke about Brahmajyoti, how Lord is Anandamaya Apyasat. Creation is managed by his plenary expansion. God realization is a great science. Then Paramatma, Brahmajyoti, then perfect understanding of the Bhagavan feature of the Lord. So, realization of the material potencies, but no info of spiritual potencies, Paramatma, which is the branch of the original root, Supreme Personality of Godhead. No knowledge of the potency of the Supreme Truth is Brahmajyoti. And one praise, full potency is understood by removing the Hiranmaya Patra. Bhagavan is the source of Paramatma, is also the source of Brahman. We'll go to Brahman first. Brahman, easily perceived by beginner, is explained in Mundaka Upanishad, that Brahman is free from material contamination. There is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire or electricity in Brahman. Illumination in material world is a reflection of Brahman, spreads throughout material spiritual skies, and is present everywhere, front, back, north, south, like this. The culture of philosophy helps one realize Brahman. All plants are situated in one corner of Brahmajyoti within the material cloud, and this mantra is a prayer to see the Lord's face so that one can remove this Brahmajyoti. Paramatma feature is realized by those who have further progressed from Brahman. It's one of the 3 plenary expansions of the Purusha Avtaras. He is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He maintains complete material cosmic creation. He manages the affairs of this material creation. He is the Vishnu among Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. He pervades the entire material cosmos, material creation as Paramatma. There are other 2 Purusha Avtaras are the second Vishnu Tattva, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and the creator of all the universes, Karanodakshaya Vishnu. So the principal Atma who controls all the Atmas is the Paramatma feature of the Lord. the Bhagavan feature, is the root of Brahman effulgence. Perfect knowledge is to understand this. This perfect knowledge can be gained from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam never states that, or Vyasadeva in this connection never states that Supreme Truth is a Jiva. Because if it is so, then there is no need to pray to remove the dazzling effulgence. The Supreme Lord is the Pushan, or the ultimate maintainer. He is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. His killing of various demons also is a pleasure excursion. He is always in his transcendental position, his Anandamaya Abhyasat. He maintains all manifestations in the spiritual world. He enjoyed with his associates as butter thief. Such activities are not reproachable. Then he created pastimes to attract dry speculators and acrobats. His childhood play with playmates is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krita Punya Punya, we saw that. He engages in transcendental loving activities with devotees in these 5 rasas. He never leaves Vrindavan Dham. He personally has nothing to do with this material creation, but causes all material things to be done by the Paramatma feature, the Purusha avatars. And he is filled with transcendental bliss, Anandamaya Abhyasa. That's why he is engaging in all his pastimes in the spiritual world. Okay. Fine. I think this is the last slide. The system of God realization is a great science. Okay. So, Jnani is better than a fruity worker. A yogi is more progress than a Jnani. And Bhaktas are ultimately, they understand the system of God realization. Sankhya yogis, they analyze and meditate the 24 factors of creation. So, therefore, speaking only about matter. Impersonal translators, they are bewildered by glare of Brahmajyoti. And the devotees, they pray for removal of Hiranyamaya Patra and they actually realize the absolute truth. Okay. Then mantra 16. Pusha Nekarsha Yamasura Prajapatya Vyuha Rashmin Samuha Tejo Yatte Rupam Kalyana Tamam Tamte Pavashyami Yo Asau Purusha Soham Asmi. O my Lord, O Prime Philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental race so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as I am. Then comparison is done between the sun and its rays and the Lord and the Brahmajyoti. The Lord is the supreme person and he has these qualities. He maintains, leads, merciful, he bestows all qualification and is the original cause of all causes. The Jiva tries to imitate the Lord and therefore he comes to this material world, but the Lord favors pure devotees who only want to render service unto him. Okay. So, Bhagavan has all these features. He is almighty and possesses transcendental potencies. He is not realized in Brahmajyoti. And Srila Jiva Goswami gives an explanation of who Bhagavan is by quoting Vishnu Purana. And Srila Prabhupada quotes that Bha means one who maintains fully, or he is the guardian. Ga means who is the guide, leader, or creator. Van means every living being in him. Every being lives in him, and he lives in every being. And we saw with respect to the Paramatma feature of the Lord. Guides devotees on path of the devotional perfection. He is the leader of devotees, gave himself to them. Devotees see the Lord face to face. He bestows all necessary qualifications to the devotees so that they can reach him. He is the cause of all causes. He enjoys by manifesting his internal potency. And he expands as Purusha to maintain the material manifestation, and through the Purusha incarnation, he creates and maintains and annihilates. The living entity is a differentiated expansion of the Lord, and he enters the cosmic manifestation because he has the desire to lord over. The world is stirred into action and reaction because of them, and the living entity is given full facilities by the Lord to basically lord over the nature. Bhagavan is the origin of Paramatma, and Bhagavan is also the origin of Brahmajyoti. So we saw that in the previous mantra also. When one realizes the Brahma feature is the auspicious feature of the Lord, Paramatma realization is a more auspicious feature, whereas Bhagavan is the most auspicious feature of the Lord. And between the living entity and Paramatma, there is a gulf of difference, but still Paramatma cooperates with the living entity so that he can enjoy or try to lord over within this material world. So the most auspicious form is the Lord, Bhagavan feature of the Lord, which can be compared to the sun. So he enjoys this pastime in his Goloka Vrindavan, in his own planet, sun planet. And impersonalists are blinded by the Brahmajyoti effulgence and therefore they cannot understand the Goloka Vrindavan. Philosophers, maintainers and well-wishers, they think the Lord cannot be impersonal, but the Lord maintains all, specifically his devotees. So the pure devotees, they petition the Lord to remove their effulgent rays of Brahmajyoti and their attached in heart and soul and glorify the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord has special favor to his pure devotees, and he imparts transcendental knowledge and dissipates the ignorance of his devotees. Okay. So we are actually out of time. So 17 and 18 we actually discussed yesterday. So should we discuss it today or just skip it? Discuss 17 also. Vayuranilam amritam athedam bhasmantam shariram om kritosmara kritam smara kritosmara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. Okay. So living entity is not impersonal or formless. Material body are foreign to the living entity. Highest development of one's spiritual sense is to understand that he has to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva. Prayer to enter the spiritual kingdom, Lord's intimate relationship with his devotees, 9 transcendental activities, and duty of every man at the time of death. It's one of the bigger purports. 13 and 17 is one of the longer purports in Īśopaniṣad. So living entity must fall down. If he doesn't know, he is the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He has got a material body, which is a foreign dress for him. He is placed in this material world and he falsely thinks that he is the Lord under the dictation of his senses. But the living entity is never formless or impersonal. He transmigrates in different bodies because he is a desire, the lordship, because he is the material disease of desiring over the material nature. The living entity is not annihilated and does not lose his identity. He prays to enter the spiritual kingdom, and the nature's workmanship is so wonderful that if he develops the desire to get the body of a hog, he gets the body of a hog, and if he desires to eat flesh, then he gets the body of tiger. So he prays to the Lord to remember his activities and sacrifices. And sacrifice means denying the interest of the senses. Human beings are meant to just chew, cut fruit and vegetable. That's why their teeth are arranged in that way. They do not have canine teeth, only 2 teeth canine. The cycle of evolution, we have to change body one after another. So from aquatic form, this cycle of evolution. The living entity goes through different phases of body, from aquatic to vegetable, to worm, to bird, to animal, and then finally reaches the human form of life. In this human form of life, there's a full sense of spiritual knowledge. So he can pray to the Lord to merge the life air into eternal reservoir of air. And the yogis, they can control the pranavayu and raise life air from one chakra cycle to final the Brahmarandha. There are 6 circles that was discussed. And these yogis, they surrender to the Lord after many, many lifetimes. So the living entity is then praying to the Lord to remember his activities. We saw that. Pray at the time of death with the consciousness of ultimate goal of life. And the prayer is to remember activities of life, or rather, the living entity remembers the activities of life like dreams at night. If devotee doesn't remember, then the Lord remembers. And this is not possible for animals. They don't remember their activities like this. Under material nature, one remembers his heinous acts. Whatever state one remembers, he attains that state because the mind carries the propensities to next life. Therefore, devotees should develop a sense of love of Godhead. The highest perfection is to get a spiritual body, and that's possible by surrendering and developing a sense of spiritual service. Change of body is due to different desires, and different body is attained according to one's pious and impious activities. So one should understand there is oneness, not in material varieties, but spiritual identity. So this is all with respect to the living entities. Okay. So living entity is stuck in this material world, but then there are prayers also that a living entity in transcendental knowledge should do. Then Srila Prabhupada explains this verses from Bhagavad Gita 9:30 to 34, that the Lord has an intimate relationship with his devotees. Even if a devotee is Sudurachara, but still he should be considered as a saint, there are double functions which have to be executed, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions, in terms of maintenance of body, which includes these: social status, mental development, cleanliness, austerity, nourishment, struggle for existence like this, and function for self-realization, which are activities executed in one's occupation as a devotee. One has to, as the maintenance of body decreases, then, or rather, where there is an increase in devotional service, maintenance of body automatically decreases. Until the devotional service, the proportion of devotional service comes to the right point, there is an occasional exhibition of worldliness. But still, this worldliness cannot continue for long, and the imperfections will end because of the Lord's intimate relationship with his devotees. So the path of devotional service is the right path, and facilities for devotional service is denied to the impersonalists. So therefore, there is no chance of purification for them. They cannot penetrate Brahmajyoti, and just by the word jugglery and mental speculation, all their activities are rendered fruitless. Just fruitless labor. There's much more. Yes. So 9 principles of devotional service by which one can easily remember at the end of the life the Supreme Lord. Hearing about the Lord, then we saw all these examples, hearing, glorifying, remembering. It's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandam, Dasam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So there are these 9 aspects of devotional service and the 9 devotees who have achieved perfection by these 9 processes. Then Srimad Bhagavatam explains that hearing and chanting is the basic principle of devotional life. The duty of every man at the time of death is to desire to be free from anxieties, and therefore he should hear, glorify and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Normally, at night time, people are engaged in sleep and sex, and in daytime, making money and family maintenance. So therefore, they dismiss the Lord by declaring him impersonal. But the Lord is not impersonal. He is sentient and supreme being, as declared in Vedas, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. The activities are identical with himself. So Lord's pastimes are identical with himself. That's why hearing and chanting about them can lead one to the Supreme Lord. So one should stop hearing rubbish and engage in godly activities, and one should learn this art and employ senses in service of the Lord. Okay, final mantra. Agni Naya Supatha Raya Asman, Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan, Yuyota Asma Juhran Menu, Bhuyishtham Te Nama Uttim Vidhema. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. So praying for his causeless mercy, and sinful reactions are accumulated because of engaging in karma kanda and jnana kanda activities, but bhakti surpasses all preliminary stages. Lord gives directions to his sincere devotees, therefore there is no chance for a devotee to fall down. And Srila Prabhupada concludes by giving a summary of the Srimad Bhagavatam verses 17 to 21 of first canto, chapter 2. Self-realization means regulatory principles are followed, and that way one is promoted from karma to transcendental knowledge. And one reaches, after many lifetimes with transcendental knowledge, one finally surrenders on to the Lord. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. So real and ultimate aspect of self-realization is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in which karma kanda is the lowest stage in this endeavor, because even a slight deviation from karma kanda will lead to vikarma, and which leads to hindrance in self-realization. Whereas one who surrenders at the very beginning, he surpasses all preliminary stages, and the Lord frees him from reactions to his sinful activities. So there is no question of vikarma when one surrenders to the Lord. Human form should be qualified by Brahminical culture, which means one should cultivate the qualities of truthfulness, sense control, forbearance and simplicity. One should have full knowledge and full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should not be proud to be born as a Brahmana in a Brahmana family and say that I belong to the Brahminical culture, because that kind of pride can degrade one and he can fall from the path of self-realization, which is the life's mission. And once life's mission as human being is defeated. So when one degrades and falls from the path of self-realization. Okay. Birthright is not everything. So one has to attain Brahminical qualification. Yoga Prashtas are those who have fallen from the path of self-realization. So they are given a chance to rectify by being born in the family of Brahmana or being born in the family of rich merchants. And if one misuses this, there's a chance. But if the chance is misused, then one loses an opportunity for self-realization. Right? Okay. So from karma kanda, it can lead to many sinful reactions. From jnana kanda, still there is a possibility of sinful reactions. But from devotional service, there are no sinful reactions because it's in connection with the omnipotent Lord. The Lord burns the sins of the surrendered soul. He is situated within the heart and he gives directions so that the guidance is given to devotees even if he desires something else. Therefore, he never acts wrongly. He gives sanctions to the doer at the risk of the doer, means those who are not devotees. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that devotees sometimes fall, but still the Lord at once rectifies them. And therefore, the devotees are very dear to the Lord. Yeah, so omnipotent Lord then rectifies that devotee. So he prays, the devotee prays to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. And conditioned souls, although they're apt to commit mistakes, but the remedy is to give oneself to the lotus feet of the Lord. That way, he can be free from sinful reactions. So, the omnipotent Lord can make a low-born dog-eater into qualified Brahmana by the process of devotional service. And by the process of devotional service, good qualifications of an expert Brahmana can be attained. But the omnipotent Lord is also capable of making a person who is born in a Brahmana family into a low-born dog-eater. He takes charge of fully surrendered souls and all problems are solved for them. He gives direction in two ways. One way is through the saints, the spiritual master and the scriptures, and as Paramatma, as the Lord who resides in the heart. Therefore, the devotee is protected in all respects. So, Mantra 18 specifically spoke about protection. Then, final, Vedic knowledge is transcendental. And Srimad Bhagavatam explains that. So, there cannot be understood, being transcendental, the knowledge cannot be understood by material procedure. It can be understood by the grace of the Lord only. So, when one has taken shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, then he can understand or he can attain transcendental knowledge. Spiritual master, Vedic injunction, the Lord himself, they guide devotee in full strength. So, we are protected in that way. There is no chance to fall in the mire of material illusion for those who are protected by them and protected all around to reach the ultimate perfection. And Srimad Bhagavatam explains that hearing and chanting is itself an act of piety. And the Lord wants as he is well-wisher of all living entities. He wants that everybody recite and hear his glories because the well-wisher of all living entities. He cleanses of all undesirable things within the devotee and so that the devotee can be fixed in Nishtha, Anartha Nivritti and then Nishtha. Then because of that, he requires Brahminical qualifications. The effects of lower modes are completely vanquished. One is fully enlightened by virtue of devotional service. All doubts are diminished and one comes to know the path of the Lord and way to attain him. So, this is what is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Right. So, this is the discussion of summary. These are all the points that we covered in Īśopaniṣad, and this is what all Srila Prabhupada mentions. So, if you have read the book, then it would have been easier to follow. But just by this summary, you will not be able to remember many of these things. So, that's why I said that this is not enough for the test. You will not remember, we went very fast. But if you have studied Īśopaniṣad till now, then all these things would make sense. Otherwise, we did it very fast. So many points would have missed us. Okay, so we will stop. So tomorrow will be the test, probably in the evening. The announcement will be made in the WhatsApp group. So then, and yeah, I think the plan is that we will do the corrections tomorrow itself. But we will see how it goes. Okay, we will confirm about that. Any other questions?
What time will it take?
What time? I think it will be around 3:30, but I'll confirm that. Definitely not in the morning.
Full marks, how much?
Huh?
Full marks.
Full marks. How much? I have not created the question paper yet. I have not made the question paper yet. The test will be, I'm just thinking it will be around for 1 hour 15 minutes or maybe maximum 1 hour 30 minutes. Okay. So you will have sufficient time to write. To think and write.
Sufficient time to write, not sufficient matter to write.
Yes. Yeah. It's easy. We'll see. We'll see. Right? So we'll stop. Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Śrī Īśopaniṣad ki.